This is Take 5 with Bentley, Nevada. In the studio again today is James McDuffie. He's Senior Staff Software Architect for Bentley, Nevada. And James, you're very focused on cybersecurity throughout the organization. A lot of emphasis right now on the Orbit 60 platform, of course. That flagship product is being launched to the market as we speak. A resounding number one from the customers that Bentley, Nevada interviewed was cybersecurity. Got to have a cybersecure platform. Last time we talked about how this has become really kind of a holistic company-wide focus on all products and all processes. Offline, between recordings, we talked a little bit about some of the main areas that touch the Orbit 60 platform. And one of those is undoubtedly configuring the instrument, making sure you're not introducing something into an instrument that's going to make it vulnerable. What's the new config environment called for Orbit 60?
So the new config environment is the next generation of some of our older tools. So Bentley Nevada Monitor Config is one of the older ones, but the new one's called Orbit Studio. And that's really the studio because it's designed to support more than just the Orbit 60 going forward. So it's really a platform for more devices as we, kind of march forward into the next set of generational products.
So when you're connecting this config environment to Orbit 60 and in the future, other Bentley Nevada hardware across the portfolio, I would imagine before you deliver the mail, so to speak, you got to make sure you're delivering it to the right place and
Absolutely.
the right person
Yep.
and all that good stuff. So talk to us a little bit about that whole idea of, validating things before you allow certain things to happen.
Sure. So there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to configuration, right? So you got to make sure that the config is good. You got to make sure that it's valid, that things are within the right okay ranges on all the different sensors and things. So we spend a lot of time, just like on our previous software, where we make sure that what somebody is trying to configure is the right thing to configure. But then there's the aspect of cybersecurity. How do I know that I've connected to a valid device? How do I know that the person is authorized to use the device? How do I make sure that we can support certain types of environments for our customers in terms of like firewall settings and different types of port configurations and all those types of aspects? And so you've done a really good job on the Orbit Studio platform to really make sure that we kind of tick all the check boxes for what it looks like to have a cybersecure solution. So just as a quick rambling off of some of the features that we support is we've moved to starting to use digital certificates on the devices. So every single device, Orbit 60, that we deploy into the field has an own Bentley Nevada signed certificate that we can verify that what you're connecting to is a valid Bentley Nevada device. In the future, hopefully early next year, we'll see customers be able to support their own signed certificate so they can manage that all kind of independently on their own. But then there's also encryption. So now we have full supported encryption for all communications with the device, and that happens from the configuration software as well as from System 1 talking to the device. We also support multi-port configuration. So if you think about a lot of our old softwares, it was very hard for customers to really tighten the bolts down for being able to view the data, review the configuration, do some loop checking, and still do it in a secure environment. So as a part of Orbit Studio and the Orbit 60 platform, we support multi-port configuration. So you can set it to, have encrypted data, unencrypted data, and you can have it where you have a specific configuration port. So if you want to allow someone to read the configuration through a port but not configure it, you can actually configure the device to lock down that port. Now, in terms of encryption, there's a lot of different standards globally that you have to make sure that you hit, whether it's China or Russia or the United States, for what those encryption standards are. But for a single-use device like ours, encryption is totally allowed essentially everywhere that we investigated where we are going to sell into the marketplace. And so we really wanted to make sure that we were doing the most possible secure connection when it came to encryption. So we're using TLS 1.3, which is transport layer security. We're making sure that we're doing something called perfect forward secrecy in the handshake to make sure that other people can't record the session and then try to come back later. And once they find that encryption key, they can decrypt, all the data. We have a different key every single time that we connect. So by using these modern industrial or consumer standards like TLS 1.3, we're really making sure that we're at the bleeding edge of what it means to be cyber secure in the entire industry across those communication profiles. And so, that's one of the really nice things that we've kind of baked into Orbit Studio is the ability to have that next level communication security.
Well, you piqued my curiosity. I've got some questions about Orbit Studio, so we're going to save that for our next visit, James. I'm going to have you right back in the studio, and we're going to keep talking about Orbit Studio.
Sounds good.
You've been listening to Take 5 with Bentley, Nevada, a Baker Hughes business.